morning, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. It's a brand new year. It is Monday, the 4th of January, 2021. Trust everyone had a really restful and safe holiday, and we're all raring and gearing and all of that to go for the new year. Let's trust that 2021, and we're sending our best wishes and energies that 2021 is a better year. I am Brenda Baptiste, and we'd like to welcome all listeners and viewers, those of you joining us on MTV, also on the Facebook platforms of MTV, Perspectives, Partygrenada, TNR Communications, and we welcome Mikey Live. Also, Sister Isles Radio out in Carriacou. Good morning to the folks in the Isle of Reefs. Happy New Year to you on Carriacou and Pity Martinique too. This morning, our very special guest, our first guest for the new year, our great grab, so to speak, is Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell. But before we get to our Prime Minister, I must say good morning and Happy New Year to our wonderful panelists. Senator Christopher Allie, who's over in the Isle of Reefs. Good morning. And Mr. Byron Campbell. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Morning all.
Good morning to... Go ahead, Byron. You go ahead.
No, Chris, you and the sister Isle, I give you go ahead, please.
We yield to you, sir.
Good morning to you, Brenda, and to all our listeners and our viewers, and a Happy New Year to them. These greetings, of course, are coming from the sister Isle. I'm in Carriacou this morning, and enjoying the best of what the Isle of Reefs have to offer and the people of Carriacou. It has been a wonderful few days since I've been up here, so a great good morning, and wishing everyone that come and listen to this program and view this program all the best for 2021. We do have a challenging year again as COVID is still with us, so we see how it unfolds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, wow.
So how was your holiday?
Very good. I had got an opportunity to rest. You know, when you're in Carriacou, you find time to rest, go on the beach, walk, and enjoy the best. I mean, we had some experiences up here that was really great, and continue. We come down today, but I'm up here with the family, so was having a really restful time.
All right, like in the bed. How's the new year look?
It's gonna change. I did nothing for the holidays, including getting the bed in order. So.
All right, Mr. Campbell.
Reflection of my rest.
Good morning all, and wow, it's just so wonderful to be alive in the Spice of Isle. A new year, 2020, quite a year. You don't want to forget it, but you don't want to relive it. You know, it's a bit of a contradiction there, but I just want to say Happy New Year to all the listeners and viewers. I want to wish all a healthy 2021, of course, a productive and prosperous one also. There's a lot of issues on, but as I said, it's grateful to be alive, it's grateful to be part of a process, and just look forward to doing our best for 2021.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. So we are getting ready to welcome our Prime Minister. He's our first guest for the year 2021, so we are getting the ball rolling. So once we're ready to go, technical team, we would like to welcome Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell. Good morning, Prime Minister. Not yet? Okay. All right. So we are on Zoom, so we sure once we get the signal, he'll come in. So just bear with us for a minute. But insofar as everything that we're hearing, what's happening with the COVID situation and all of that, any thoughts there?
Definitely. I mean, Grenada over the weekend would have recorded its first death. Very unfortunate. We sympathize with the family of the person, the individual. Very unfortunate, but still fortunate for Grenada that our numbers are not many. One is too much, certainly.
Yeah.
But we continue important to maintain our vigilance with the protocols. That is going to be crucial. You know, how we maintain zero numbers. This is where we need to go. And again, as we've been saying, it really comes down to the individual discipline and consciousness of every individual.
Yeah.
I think we can do it. I think we've been doing pretty well. How do we maintain this course, Brenda? That's the challenge.
I'm thinking, you mentioned the death, which is really, really sad. And again, our condolences to, the family. Of course, we saw that, there's a wife involved, there's children, there's grandchildren, there are other extended family members and a whole community. And what is going to be, what is going to be a very painful reminder for this family is that this gentleman would always be noted as the Grenada's first COVID death. So we just need to be mindful because, if it's your dad, you think of him as your father. If it's your grandfather, you think of him as your grandfather. If it's your husband. And so the constant reminder that he became, the first fatality of COVID in Grenada, that is going to be a constant painful reminder for them at times when they probably wouldn't even want to remember. So it is in that vein that, I extend my deepest condolences and absolute regrets. But, the nature of this COVID and on all of that, it just calls on all of us to just be a little more, just pay attention in all levels. And you mentioned one death is too much. I'm thinking one infection is too much. Because when you think about an infection, you now think of, okay, so we have primary contacts, we have secondary contacts, we have all the infrastructure in terms of resource that's pumped into sorting out, when did they get infected, where did they get infected, who did they interact with, etc. And then the all-important component that we all seem to just not probably pay too much human attention to, that of our healthcare professionals. We speak of them like if they're Wonder Woman and Superman, but at the end of the day, they go in to these situations daily and they are basically putting themselves at risk. Risk is kind, danger is really what it is. And so we need to be mindful of that as well. And it is really, really, really just a real kind of...
And it looks as though our Prime Minister have joined. I don't know if they have unmuted him as yet, but I see him in the frame.
Right. So, yes, so as we mentioned earlier, our special guest this morning, our first guest for the new year, taking time off his extremely busy schedule. He's going to be with us for the next half an hour or so. And we welcome to Perspectives for the very first time for the new year. And we say Happy New Year to Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell. Good morning, Prime Minister.
Good morning, Brenda and Chris and Byron and everybody. Good morning to your audience through the length and breadth of our country.
All right.
Morning, PM.
Morning.
Great.
So, Prime Minister, 2020, quite a year, marked over 35, 36 odd years of you being in public life in Grenada. A very trying year with COVID and all of that. And we come over to 2021, it's like 2020 continued. And here we are on this morning, yesterday with reports that Grenada recorded its first COVID death. Your thoughts encapsulate your leadership in 2020, your feelings as a leader, as a human, and Grenada's first COVID fatality. Your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, Brenda, I think most people would say that they're glad to see the end of 2020 because I have heard all kind of commentary about 2020. It's one going to be down in history books as a difficult year for all persons all around the globe. And certainly leaders in all parts of the globe will have considered that one a very tough year in every respect. Well, we believe that despite the problems that 2020 brought around the globe, I think we can say safely that we have handled it reasonably well as a country I'm talking about. We have had to face the fact that this is something that we have never had to deal with in the past, and we had to be adjusting all the time. There was nothing sacrosanct about any decision that we made that could not be changed, when we had to be adjusting our schedule and activities and initiatives on a regular basis. But I think, by and large, getting the general support of key sectors of the society would have been fundamental. I think the religious community would have played their part in advising the followers of the importance of adhering to the protocols in a general sense. So I think the religious community must come in for some commendation. I believe the undertakers also, whose funeral I've gone to during this time, they have been sticking to the protocol and insisting that people adhere to them. So I think they must be commended too. And I think in a general sense, we do have areas of weaknesses, and particularly our younger brothers and sisters who believe they're immune from the effects of this virus. But I think evidence has shown internationally and regionally that young people are being infected and also are getting sick in serious ways, and also not only that they may get sick or would have got sick, but also they would bring it home to the families, and that is a fundamental problem in itself. But I think with the advent of it's reported, and I have to say it cautiously so, that it's COVID-19 death, because there could be reasons, other factors related to that. I don't know, but that is what the Ministry of Health has reported, and we have to accept it on its face value. It's unfortunate, the passing of anyone, any member of a family or constituents, Grenadians, is something that pains all of us, and certainly I think the ministry has already expressed on behalf of the government our sympathy and support for the families of the gentleman who died. So that's a very different. But I suppose with the virus taking lives all around the world, it was quite possible that one day we probably would have to face the consequences of someone passing, which is unfortunate, as I said. I don't know a lot more. I've, in fact, in speaking to the Minister of Health, when they were thinking of having a press conference, I thought it was unwise to have a press conference with an incident that just occurred when you do not have all the facts related to what has happened. So I told the minister he should collect all the information from the staff of the various institutions that the gentleman went to, before he addresses the public, because you might go and say something and the public it turned out to be not accurate. And I thought that's one thing I believe we as leaders have to be extremely careful with. We are not perfect persons in any respect, but the one thing we must never do is to tell what appears to be untruth to the public, because when you lose credibility, you lose a lot more than just a problem related to one incident, and people start to second guess you in almost everything you say or do.
Okay.
So that's where we are. As we end 2020, Brenda, just want to capture the question, the answer to the question you ask. Tough year, but I think we ended 2021. We're glad we're there in a new year, hopefully, with the vaccine possibilities coming, and we're going to be doing everything possible to attempt to get the vaccine and to really educate our people, or to inform them, or to get them to understand the necessity to get the vaccine. Because while we can't say that everyone understands the necessity, I think we have to, as those of us who understand what we have to do, must do what we can and use our influences in every sphere of life to push people to accept the the vaccination process to come.
Right. As you mentioned the vaccines, Prime Minister, before the panelists come in, outside of the COVAX grouping, where Grenada be pursuing any other independent means of obtaining the vaccine, and
Yes,
how would an
yes.
immunization policy for Grenada look?
Oh, I didn't hear that last part.
How would an immunization policy or rollout for Grenada look?
Well, we have certainly, we have to certainly have the training of the personnel to do the vaccine. I think that is a task that the Ministry of Health and the Advisory Committee must get onto. We have been in touch with the various persons making the vaccines without influence in several areas. They've been in touch with PAHO, been taking initiative on behalf of small states like ours. But individual persons in the private sector who has influence and, of course, resources have been offering to fund the acquisition of vaccines for our country and for the countries in the region. So we're looking at many areas and many sources. We're not going to be just depending on one particular source. We believe that the larger countries with the resources have a fundamental responsibility to help the poor third world countries and as far as the obtaining of the vaccine are concerned. So we are working on all fronts as far as that is concerned. And we will be informing the nation on a regular basis. Hopefully we hope we could by March, April this year, we should be starting to see the arrival of serious vaccination in this country.
Right. And we will have public campaigns on immunization.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. We'll have to do that. And that's where the press, Brenda, would have to play a major role. This is something I think I must make a call for. I always say to people that there's some issues that we should not have any differences on. When it talks about life of persons and something that could affect any person in the country, doesn't matter what religion, what political suasion you come from, we should not have any political divide. We should be singing one message. And certainly whatever advice the government can get from any quarter, we were prepared to listen and to look seriously at it, because this, as far as I'm concerned, this is a national issue and should have a national response, irrespective of one social strata or whatever we consider to be differences in the society.
Okay. Prime Minister, before I hand you over to the erstwhile gentleman here, I have another COVID question for you. If you had the opportunity to press rewind and then play on the recent sandals situation, what would you change?
Well, the fact is, we appreciated and lauded Sandals for, and I'm sure you've heard me say so publicly, for reopening their facility in a time of great economic hardship when almost every hotels were closed and were unable to bring back in the staff. And as you know, the pain outside there of people who have been depending on the monthly income from hotel-related or tourism-related activities, we had to try to provide some support, and the government couldn't continue to do that and for any serious length of time. So when Sandals came in and decided to bring back over 600 of the staff members, local people, we were highly complimented. We complimented them highly about that, because it was of the importance economically and otherwise, and socially too. Therefore, there was somewhat of a dependence on Sandals' cooperation with the government as far as the testing area was concerned. Come with your PCR negative test. You go to Sandals, they agreed that they were going to do testing also on regularly, so we trusted them in that respect. And they did indicate that they would provide transport for the workers back and forth to the hotel so that they would not have to mix with the general public. And when they came back in from after being away from work for a day or two, that their garments would be washed clean, and new garments would be given to them in continuing their work. So a number of understanding was laid. It appears that to me, and I don't want to, I know Sanders may not be happy when I say this, but it appears to me, I mean, I'm not I'm not God in that respect, so I can't say that is absolute, but it appears to me that they may not have followed up on exactly what on a consistent basis. So it appears that some of the infection that we had emanated from some of the some problems there, which they of course have disagreed with, and I have no reason to believe our position and the Ministry of Health position has been incorrect. So, yes, so therefore, one could say maybe we should not have allowed any depended on them in that sense. I don't know that one could say so. You always Monday morning quarterback decision that you make, but I think it was a fair decision at the time that we made it. So going forward, I think the ministry has to, and the advisory committee and the Ministry of Health will doing all that it can, the protocol arrangement, the question of the quarantine. But the fact is, you know, sometimes I hear some people criticizing the situation in Sanders, but some of the places that were supposed to be quarantine places and some people that you expect to be responsible, in some of the places that we had, they were having activities which they know was not appropriate for a quarantine place. In fact, they had to be spoken to. You know, some of them, some noises I heard from certain persons, certain quarters. They should search their conscience when they're talking about other people, because they themselves did not live up to their promises. I think a lot of times people think of the dollars instead of looking at the big picture, which is you make $1 today and you encourage sickness tomorrow, you don't enjoy it. So I make this point for what it's worth. So some of the quarantine places did not live up to their expectation and what they agreed to. So we have to be tougher in a general sense in going forward, Brenda.
All right. Thanks, Prime Minister. Mr. Campbell.
Morning, Prime Minister, and again, once more, Happy New Year. I'm going to change the subject a little bit here. Recently, we had the appointment of 2 senior officers in the public service. One, first, the Attorney General, a young woman and young youth, clearly qualified and experienced. Secondly, you had a Commissioner of Police, Commissioner Martin. Clearly, what we see here is an attempt to regularize acting positions, because we've seen this throughout the service. But these are far-reaching. Are we living in the future? I'm not going to comment on the fact that they're both from Morris. I am from Morris.
God.
But this is a big deal. Are we living in the future, Prime Minister? I mean, this is particularly in the case of a young woman being appointed to such a senior position. Your take on this, Prime Minister?
Yeah, go ahead. You finish?
Yes, go ahead, Prime Minister.
Yeah, I think in the case of the commissioner, I believe that it's fair to say that he has acted for a reasonable period of time and have demonstrated a level of professionalism. And in my view, I've always said to the police, I would want to recommend the appointment of a commissioner of police who has any seriously believe in partisan type behavior. I believe that a commissioner must be an independent person, because the job is supposed to be that way. He has to protect, he or she has to protect all citizens in the country, irrespective of their religious and political views and other social considerations. And I think so far, Commissioner Martin has certainly demonstrated that type of attitude and behavior. So I think it's the Public Service Commission, in my view, did the right thing in the procedure to confirm in that position and to give some certainty to the leadership of the police forces. It's a critical area of national security. In the case of the Attorney General, of course, Dashon and Danny was there and provided enormous professional support, and he wanted to back out into the private sector and gave us sufficient time to indicate this. And fortunately for us, we had someone like our dear in the position of Solicitor General. And I must tell you this, in my conversation and in talking to people in the legal profession and also the staff of the Ministry of Legal Affairs and other persons in the public service who she interacted with over that period of time of service, they all felt that she was a professionally a strong person in hoping to give guidance to the government and to the country as a whole as far as the area of legal affairs have been. I have found her to be very honest and straight and not playing any political games with the government. I can't say that about some of the persons that have served in that position over the years. They give you one opinion today and you hear them criticizing it tomorrow. But I have not seen her in that particular context. The honesty and integrity that she has demonstrated has been, to me, a very good one. And certainly that's what we want in the office of the Attorney General. So she has accepted that. We are lucky to have her accepted because she was supposed to go back to St. Kitts, I think in Montserrat or St. Kitts, where she was before. Yeah. But we are able to stay, and I think we are extremely fortunate. She's young, and of course have a lot of energy for that job, and I certainly look forward to her presence here for a long time.
Just to follow up, Prime Minister, I mean, what is a realistic, I know your time is short, what is a realistic expectation for 2021 as far as the economy is concerned, particularly in the context of COVID?
We're not hearing you.
What is your, can you hear me now?
Byron, we're not hearing you. We lost you.
Okay, can you hear me now, Prime Minister?
Prime Minister, probably I could come in there because as I fix Byron audio with you, I want to go back on the COVID question and just say, first of all, congrats to the government. I think they did an excellent job in 2020. Yes, we got our spike, but it seems to be heading in the right direction now, which is a downward trend. Yes. And the Ministry of Health certainly seems to have it under some wraps and control to some degree. My question is around the issue of what is happening in our sister CARICOM country, Barbados, and what we're seeing there in terms of their spike and their concerns. I see Prime Minister Motley have indicated that today and tomorrow is a public holiday in Barbados, and instructions, they have increased their curfew period and all of that. It appears as though they're worried about a new strain that have shown its head with this COVID crisis. So the question is our government going to be paying particular attention to that? Because I know flights have been open between Barbados and Grenada, and how that is going to affect what we do with the limited operations we have with flights in and out of the country. So that will be my first question. And the second one on the curfew, on the COVID crisis, is the curfew extended for another week in Grenada and Carriacou, or is it? I know it was supposed to end today.
Yes, I'll answer that second one first. And the curfew will be extended for another 2 weeks. But of course, the cabinet will be meeting today, and the decision will be announced afterwards. So it could be a week or two. So let me just say this. So I can't say for absolute certainty whether it's 2 weeks or 1 week, but it's going to be extended. Certainly, we believe that we're on the right track. I've followed what is taking place in Barbados. The fact is, while we all have taken the initiative in our individual countries, there's been some different approaches in different countries, and it has to be so, because you can't everything that exists in Barbados use it here in Grenada and vice versa. So we had taken very strong actions in limiting social activities for many, many months. As you recall, we had not, our curfew went in early in the early stages, and we relaxed a bit, but we certainly kept a certain limited number of persons for funerals and so on. And if you check many countries, I don't think they had instituted that level of control in some areas. So I think it appears that the social activities that were occurring in Barbados in a period of time were allowed, and that could have been part of the problem. As I say, I'm speaking from just what I've heard and understood. But we had consistently indicated that we are not supporting large social activities, and I think that's the right position. I think there was a recommendation to go to a lockdown period, and I resisted that because I felt that one has to be extremely careful in when you're talking about limiting people's basic freedom and rights. You have to have overriding reasons to do it. And I felt we were doing reasonably okay, and didn't see the need to provide other serious problems that could emanate from lockdown at this particular time. Because I always say to people, when dealing with this major issue that the world is facing, we are facing, we have several dimensions that we have to take into consideration. The health, of course, has to be number one. But you cannot get away from the social consequences of decisions that we make, because we are human beings, what we are. And I think we have to be very careful in dealing with that factor. Clearly also, we have the economic considerations, because we have to have resources to take care of the problems that we have. And if we cut off everything, we won't have resources. We create another problem in this society. And clearly the political consideration, because we are a multi-party democracy, and therefore people have different views. So one has to be careful in taking decisions and being able to make sure that people understand the decisions that you take. So I feel that we have done what we should do. And of course, we are certainly monitoring what is taking place in Barbados and other countries. So far, I believe the key thing going forward, as I see it, whether it's relative to Barbados and other countries, is what we do when people get here. I believe people coming here, and the quarantine procedures we have to examine again. I think when the whole question of testing after 4 days, we may have to re-examine this, maybe not 4 days, maybe much longer than that period of clearance because based on what we know now of the virus and the new strain, and someone could be, after 4 days, may have been in contact with someone with the virus, may not show up in 4 or 5 days. So it might be 9 days, 10 days, and so on. One has to, as I said earlier on, this is a dynamic situation that we are facing that we never had to deal with before. So we have to adjust. So it seems to me that the government, the Ministry of Health, the government has to look at our procedural protocols and make some changes that we believe are necessary in protecting the country as a whole. And the question of home quarantine, we might have to probably more vigorous approach in dealing with it and following up on people being there. I think that's another factor that we have to look at. And the quarantine places, we have to have much more follow up more on what is taking place in those institutions, because they are hotel facilities, generally speaking, and many activities go on in hotels that are not necessarily in the best for dealing with this virus situation, because you have guests who are there outside of being quarantine guests. And the quarantine guests, and you never know what could happen during that particular time. So there are a number of things that we have to tighten up here, and we need everybody on board in dealing with this.
Prime Minister.
Brenda, back to you.
Yeah, Prime
yes?
Minister, with with Ms. Forrester becoming the Attorney General, dear Forrester.
Brenda, we're not hearing you.
Very low, Brenda. I don't know if
Are you hearing me
the
now?
volume on your side. A little better.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, Prime Minister, you're hearing her?
No, I'm hearing you very clearly, but I'm not hearing Brenda.
You hearing me now, Prime Minister?
You're hearing you, but not loud enough now.
Okay, so I'll speak very loud. I hope not too loud. I'll speak very loud. With dear Forrester becoming the Attorney General, are you ready to announce the Solicitor General?
Huh?
Would there be an announcement?
She was asking about it.
Oh, okay. Well, we are going to be examining that. I have to discuss that with the Minister of Legal Affairs. We have a number of personnel within the ministry right now, and we have to decide which one, certainly which one can act in that position for a period of time, and before we decide finally on the person that will be there permanently, at least for a while.
Okay.
So that's something we'll be addressing very shortly. We're discussing it post-cabinet this morning, and certainly this week in coming forward with someone to act in that position.
All right. Today being the first working day of the new year, Prime Minister, the workers of Grenlec, they are going into work this morning under probably apprehensive circumstances. Now, under the collective bargaining agreement, the management structure, the company also that will be coming in to manage the affairs. Explain for us the synergy, the structure, especially speak to the workers of Grenlec this morning.
Chris, you may have to translate because I'm not hearing her well at all.
Yes. What she's asking, Prime Minister, as a start of the new year in Grenlec, and for the workers, the question is, would there be any significant changes, or would they be coming in under the existing structure? What kind of time frame you're looking for in terms of
I want him to explain the
transition to
synergy
new
and the
management?
structure. What happens from here
I'm
on
happy
in?
you're asking that, Brenda, because I wanted to be very clear that we see no need for any changes at this particular time. We know that the workforce at Grenlec historically has been one of the best in the Caribbean region as a whole. Even when government had control it, recall that the workers there were responsible for bringing electricity to 55% of the country. A lot of persons do not know the history of that Grenlec situation. But when we got into government 84, only 45% of the country had electricity. And within 4 years, without hiring anyone from outside, without bringing anybody, we are able to bring electricity to 95% of the persons in the country. And in fact, you guys, I honestly believe the rural electrification under myself as Minister of Public Utilities, I think was one of the major reasons for my emergence as a possible candidate for Prime Minister of the country. People would have forgotten this. So the workers of Grenlec was one of the best. When Montserrat had this problem, we sent some of our workers. Barrel and a number of boys from Grenlec went there and they really did an excellent job. When we had our problem in the Ivan and the workers from Cuba and other places came, they said we had some of the best workers. So there is no need for us to consider doing anything immediately as far as the workforce is concerned, as far as management they're concerned. Whatever we do would have to be in the best interests of the country as a whole and the workers as a whole. The workers are represented by a union whom we respect, and we will be working together. So whatever changes, the union would have to be a major part of this. So I don't see the workers having any fundamental problems at all as far as the new situation. And I think the minister has already announced the approach going forward is to get the management team supported by the international community to help us in the process of dealing with the management structure of the company going forward, and also the question of how you deal with divesting the shares, because I've made it very clear, and I've said that over and over, government has enough areas that it has to be responsible for, and in some cases not doing the best job. And I'm not talking about NNP government, historically all governments. So we don't need to take on another area that a private sector institution or public can manage better. Government has enough problems of its own. So we will be divesting the shares, and I'm convinced, based on the value that we have been able to negotiate and the concessions that we've got, that when the shares are sold, I believe we will in fact profit from the selling of the shares, and the government would not have lost any money on the deal at all.
All right, so Prime Minister, can you
Minister, if
hear
I
me
can ask a
now?
question, Brenda?
Sure.
I just have one more question because I find that he's not hearing. So before
Yeah,
you
we're still
stop,
hearing you very low.
before you stop here, me too, Chris. Basically, just want to find out from him what is Grenada prepared to do? See that there have been some initial discussions and so on with SGU, but what is Grenada prepared to do should there be an eruption of the La Soufrière volcano in neighboring St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
Yes, we had a OECS heads of government meeting last week. I think it's Wednesday or Thursday, one day last week, Thursday. And the Prime Minister of Gonzalve, who is now was then chairman of CARICOM, of course, is the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And he brought us up to date on the state of play of the activity of the volcano. And they, of course, want to make it very clear that while there were no immediate threat of an eruption, they are not orange, and the next stage is red, and that could be eruption. So they have to take all the precautions, and they are having the scientific seismic study unit from the University of the West Indies on the ground, advising them as to the state of play of the volcanic activity there. And so they are in preparation for possibility of evacuation if they have to. And I did promise Prime Minister Gonzalve that I would be in touch with St. George's University Chancellor, and the Chancellor, when I called him, immediately agreed to make the 2,000 rooms at St. George's University available if the need arises. And in fact said that there are other resources that St. George's University have available based on requests. For example, transport, the buses that are available to transport people, and other factors. So the St. George University has offered, and clearly as a government, our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent need our help. We always would be there to help them, because when we had our problem, they made sacrifices for us, and that's what our brothers and sisters have to do to each other in times of need.
Okay, thank you. Senator Allie?
Yes, I wanted to go back to Prime Minister on the question of Glen Lake and just ask on the issue going forward with Glen Lake, Prime Minister, when you look at what has happened in places like Barbados with PV technology and electric vehicles and so on, I believe one of the critical things for the private sector as a new field of investment is in the PV technology. And the fact that we could sell, if we put our roofs and panels, sell back to the grid, and the profits that could come from that. And for the ordinary person as well, the ordinary Grenadian, who could transform their roof into panels and get the ability to sell back to the grid and to reduce their costs. So my question is from a cost point of view, because I know that one of the reasons for us and this whole Grenadic issue is to reduce the cost of electricity for the average person. How quickly would the government look to put in the framework to deal with things like electric vehicles, PV panels being more prevalent, and changing the formula in terms of how Grenlec would credit those of us who go into the system?
Chris, that's a very important observation. It's unfortunate that the whole issue of WRB and Grenlec has been made to be a political issue, and it's extremely unfortunate. It ought not to have been a political issue. My fundamental problem in 1994, and the record will show it, was never about WRB. It was about the conditions of the sale. I'm an advocate of privatization of government assets that can be better run by the private sector. I have a record in this respect, but with the condition under which this sale was, which was to make it difficult for the point you just made, which is alternative energy, and how the consumer will benefit from our investment in alternative energy, and how the company, unfortunately, Chris, there was this perception that if the company moved to liberalize, as we had no choice to do, and it was affecting the economic activity in the country, that the company would make less profit. I totally couldn't understand it. My own view was prices of energy would drop. There would be expansion of activities in the country. The manufacturing sector, for example, Chris, where you in the area that you are involved in, you would not see less activity in the manufacturing sector. A number of small and manufacturing sector went down because the electricity prices was just too high for them to profit there. Most of the little profit they would have made went back into energy. So clearly, we have to move aggressively. That has to be. If we move and now we have control of the shares of Grand Lake, and then we divest in it with certain conditions in place to protect the consumers and the business community as a whole. And if prices do not drop, then we would have failed the people of the country. So that has to be a fundamental objective, and the government will be moving and working with, we want to bring all our social partners on board. So we expect Chris, as the Senate representative for business, that we hope there could be a lot of action on the part of the private sector getting involved in buying shares in Grand Lake, because they have a stake in this. It's going to be in their interest to help in the divestment of the shares, and at the same time reducing costs to the consumers and providing. And this thing about this social benefits, a few $100,000 were given to social. We believe we should be able to expand this. We had a serious limitation in street lights in the country. Even I myself in my constituency, people asking me for a street light, and I had to beg Grand Lake. I don't understand how we as a nation could have tolerated the control of all aspects of it in a country in the hands of someone that is simply interested in profit more than anything else. And I can't blame them. It's a private sector company. They didn't come here because they love Grenada. They love the fact that they can benefit from a very profitable company, and I can't blame them. I never had a problem with WRB as a group. I had a problem with the condition upon which WRB was given the control of Grand Lake.
Prime Minister.
Yeah, Prime Minister. Sorry, Byron, you go ahead.
Okay, Prime Minister. Today is the first working day of the year. Well, for most of us, Monday the 4th, your first cabinet meeting. Many persons are going to work with a lot of uncertainties. COVID, the tourism sector, where it's at, and all the issues. What is your overarching statement to the public in terms of, as we face this new year? What is your message, Prime Minister?
And the message, Byron, is to be, I'm very confident with the fact that we have had major infection in this country, and if we adhere to the protocols, the basic things, and we got to keep telling people, why do a government or prime minister or minister or business person or friend have to tell you, do something to protect your own life? We calling on people, wash your hands regularly, wear your mask, and all the time, and particularly when you leave your home, wear that, and also make sure that you protect yourself in every respect. And social physical distance yourself as much as possible. We believe if we continue to do that, Byron, and with the vaccine coming, we believe this year should be an exciting way for opportunities for all and sundry. I certainly, with the kinds of projects possibly on stream, they have been held back to some extent because of the the infection, COVID-19, because many of the persons who were supposed to be coming in, like the architects and so on, we had to tell them, well, look, we can't come in at a certain time, and that kept back the project to some extent. And many other countries where these people are coming from are told if they go, when they come back, they have to quarantine for at least 2 weeks. So that was affecting serious activity in the construction and developmental sector of their society. But with the vaccination coming, we expect to see there'll be a tremendous reduction in some of the problems related to this. And therefore, I expect that we'll see significant improvement in economic prospects. By the middle of the year, I expect we'll see a lot more activity. And I see jobs being created in the hotel sector and other areas of economics opportunities in the country as a whole. So the point I'm making is, I believe the prospects look good, and I want to indicate to people they should be very hopeful. While we're going through a painful period, I believe a new day dawn will not be long from now.
Okay. Prime Minister, before you go, I just want to go back to Grenec for a bit.
Yes,
the repurchase value clause of 1994, was that injurious or a fork in the road with us continuing on with WRB?
But let me see. Well, clearly, WRB is the one would want to answer that more than me, because I had two fundamental problems with the arrangement in '94, and as the record will show, the formula used to charge electricity. As a mathematician myself, I went to town and showed that how it was biased against the country and the consumer as a whole. I wasn't listened to by the government of the day then. And secondly, the question of the buyout clause. I mean, here you have an arrangement, and you said in this, and we didn't go to Parliament, we didn't go to just the government and the cabinet. This thing was taken to the Parliament, so all of us signed on to this. And the motion was about approving that if there is a slightest change in the agreement, that WRB will invoke the clause by a buyout clause. So when people are saying, I gave the impression as if we wanted to buy Grenec and buy the shares, this is totally false. The only thing we wanted for Grenec for WRB to agree with us, that we must have some liberalization. And we were able to show them that they will not make less profit, but they decided they have a parliamentary act in their favor, and it says that any change at all, that they would invoke the buyback clause, and we had no choice. So when we went to Washington, we are hoping against hope that the International Tribunal would have said, okay, it would be unfair to force us to buy back. But the tribunal said, look, we understand the unfairness or fairness of the deal, so to speak. But you have an agreement, and it's not just the cabinet of the country, the parliament of the country, including me, was there. And therefore, they could only rule on what the act had said. And that's why we had no choice but to be forced to buy back. Thank God, with the savings that we've had and the way we've managed the country, we were able to find enough savings in the 2020 budget and beyond to be able to meet that fundamental thing. I don't know at any other time in my period of service in government where government of Grenada would be able to find $60 million savings in capital activity, because I want to be careful, because there are some people that are advocating to the trade union and the workers. The government could find $60 million, therefore they must pay you all the increases. Nonsense. The savings that we got was about capital programs, not recurrent expenditure. We touch and find additional money to increase further investment on expenditure, recurrent expenditure, and more salaries, then we'll find it very difficult to get the kind of support that we're getting from the international community in advancing further development of the country. So our job is to expand the capital program and create more development activities in the country. And that's why all the grants we're getting and all the soft loans we're getting is to advance not to advance capital activity, so to create jobs, not to put more money in the hands of salaries for workers in the country.
Prime Minister, just to be clear, the room that you found in the budget for the 2020 budget, just to be clear, we are talking about the budget presented in 2019 for the year 2020?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Oh, okay, because you don't want to...
In fact, Brenda, I should say so. If we had a normal year, last 2020, we probably would not be able to find the savings. It's because of the COVID. A lot of the activities that we were supposed to be financing, we were not able to finance it because the COVID prevented the activity. And therefore we were able to find a lot of savings that we would not have had. So COVID had one positive in it, in that respect. So while we lament the problem, it brought us an opportunity.
All right. So we know we have to let you go. Of course, it's wrap-up time. Thank you so much for taking the time. But just one quick go-around before you go with all three of us. You're heading into your first cabinet meeting for the new year. Regarding any easement at all as it relates to the restrictions, I am going to make a personal plug here. I think for the most part, as a Grenadian, as someone who socialized a bit, afraid of COVID, yes, I think restaurants and bars that are managed well have done very well with the restrictions. And we have to admit that outside of the big brand name chain of takeout in Grenada, Grenada is a fine dining marketplace. It is really not a takeout marketplace. And so the fine dining facilities, they have been hit really hard. The employees themselves, are there going to be any special consideration for restaurants at the meeting this morning?
Yes, Brenda, you've made a very good point. I really feel for a lot of those persons in the restaurant and service industry, because many of them, most of them are locals and who have invested almost every bit of their family asset, not only individual assets, family assets. So hearing you this morning and knowing what others have told me, I certainly would be bring that before the cabinet this morning as we look at the additional period for curfew and restrictions, and to look at ways we can modify that so to be able to ease up the pain of that particular group. But of course, we have to look at all factors in going forward. But that's a reasonable request, Brenda, and I certainly have heard you very clearly. And as I said, I'll be taking that in consideration at the cabinet meeting this morning.
Okay. Senator and Kariku, your last one.
No, I just want to thank the Prime Minister. I think I was going to make a plug for our business community, restaurants and so on, to find out if we could get some easement, and I'm happy to hear that some consideration is going to be given. Prime Minister, I'd like to tell you that the private sector will, through my own initiative, will going to work hard to see if we could bring proposals as it relates to the Grand Lake and the way forward.
Yes, very important.
I think that is going to be important as we develop, especially alternative side energy of that power supply chain. So I suspect as we move forward, you will hear from me and as we come forward on those issues.
Yes.
Apart from that, I want to wish all of us all the best for 2021. I think we have opportunity and we could make it work, but we just have to be careful as we go forward. And with the vaccine coming, let's hope that will give some easement.
Yes, so Brenda and Chris and Byron, I'll take this up to wish you all the best for the new year. I mean, we certainly wish our nation as best as possible going forward, knowing that they have everyone had to make an enormous level of sacrifice in 2020. So hopefully we can see some serious improvement in 2021. All the best, guys, and keep your work up, because I think this program is reaching people. So I think we should use programs like this to spread the message and to obey the protocol and to look forward to some improvement as far as our activities in 2021 is concerned. All the best, guys.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. All the best to you. Thank you so much for taking the time off your busy schedule to, you said half an hour, but probably went in for a good 45 or more minutes. 50. So thank you so much for being so gracious and kind with your time. And do have a good day. And here's to a better 2021 for all of us.
Yeah.
So, Senator Allie, he's gone.
Thank you, Brenda. Well, I just want to, I know we're wrapping up now, and I just want to say that, I think the Grand Lake issue provides us with a lot of opportunity for changing what we do. I indicated earlier that I think there's a new sector that's going to evolve in terms of PV technology and the supply of PV power to the grid, which will offer opportunities for many businesses, both private and otherwise, to look at that technology and see how we can go. Even in transport, investment in electric vehicles, how will government look to change the customs and the duties to facilitate more people getting into that industry and reducing our dependence on fossil fuels, I think offers great opportunity for us in a difficult period where there are limited ways and areas for us to invest. And I think this is now going to offer a new opportunity of investment for all of us that we could look forward to. So I accept from the Prime Minister the opportunity of the private sector to get more involved and see how we can lead the charge in not only reducing the average unit cost of consumption of electricity, but also from the point of view of investment and returns, and offering our people a new vehicle that we could use to at least gain some monies as we invest.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Brenda, 2 points I want to make here briefly is that, one, with the Grand Lake issue, for example, the project I'm involved in, we started last year working with NULO, providing PV training, solar panel training for young persons, both installation and maintenance. And in anticipation, essentially, of this sector opening up, because it's going to create quite an opportunity for young people's and employment. The other point is that regarding savings in the 2020 expenditure, again, I'm involved in a project and we've had to cut, based on the reality last year, by 65%. In terms of our projected spending and budget, cut by 65%. So we saw savings in the project. Of course, we are going to, in the current year, the idea is to be very engaging and to increase implementation. But that is what I think, what the Prime Minister was explaining, that because of the COVID, you've had less expenditure, particularly in capital expenditures. I think those 2 points are worth noting. Yeah.
One of the two takeaways for me is the fact that when we were on COVID, that he stressed when asked about, what would he change, stressed about the, really, it sounds like if we won't take words for granted anymore, that there's going to be some specific monitoring. He didn't use monitoring, but if we're going to change, that is what we have to change. And also the quarantine, how we going to switch that up a bit. And he made the point about the 4 days, the things we are finding out about the 4-day quarantining period. And only yesterday, just responding to a post from one of my friends on Facebook, I shared, because very, very early in this whole COVID, you should call it a series because it just keeps going on. Very early in this whole COVID series, I remember Dr. Francis Martin, explaining that a PCR test is a snapshot in time. So when you're swabbed on the 4th day, what the PCR returns on the 6th, 7th, 11th, 14th day is what was happening in the body, the viral load in the body on the 4th day. So the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, you see where I'm going?
It's a dynamic situation.
So there is so much more that we are finding out. So I'm really heartened to hear that we are going to re-examine this 4-day thing as we find out more scientifically, and we are going to have more stringent quarantine measures in place. That is critical, because outside of asking us to wear our masks, be responsible, these other things, these other modalities must support that. Because if we're not doing that, it will be a whole crazy situation. So I was happy to hear that.
But Brenda, the other issue is, of course, and we didn't speak about it this morning at all, and maybe Chris could even chime in here, is the question of education. Now, schools are on hold, essentially. the question is, what are parents thinking this morning? What arrangements they're making? Because the ministry is still, in my information, analyzing the situation. There's no specific timeline regarding at what point school will be open.
Remember that we were always told
Yeah.
that it was going to be blended.
Yeah.
We were always told that the approach would be a blended approach. It
Yeah.
may very well mean once
Yeah.
we can't do face-to-face,
Yeah.
we go back online.
Yeah,
So I
the
guess we
e-learning,
have
yeah,
some more
yeah.
some more information
And I
as
wanted
we
to
go
know,
on.
and I'm anxious to know also, what is the status of the e-learning platforms that the ministry is implementing and where they start? Because I agree with you that it seemed that the way forward for the time being must be a combination of both.
Yeah, but
And
they
the
said
fact
very
that
early.
students now have tablets, at least all secondary schools
Yeah.
and to some extent
Yeah.
primary schools, it's a real opportunity to strengthen this area.
I am thinking based on the infrastructure they have in place from the time we got
Yeah.
from March to
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
Regarding learning.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking we can make
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
smooth transition,
Yeah.
but the information and
Yeah.
the process
Yeah.
is very important. So that's it.
I
We
would
get-
say, Brenda and Byron, my comment is two. The first one, Brenda, is on the issue of extending the quarantine period, because that in itself has significant cost implications for people who have to come to quarantine in hotels and so on.
Yeah.
I understand the health issues and what is around that, so we also have to look at balance as it relates to that.
Yeah.
And probably one of the ways to balance that is increased testing
Correct.
after the 4th day, the one next one on the
Absolutely.
14th day or the 10th day, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Of course, there's cost associated with testing as well, and the ability to handle the capacity that comes with that. So there is going to need to be some discussion and balance around that.
Yeah.
On the issue of the schools, I believe that, as Byron said, there's a lot more in penny wise and pound foolish kind of thing. You have to be very cautious. And the reason I asked Prime Minister about the Barbados situation, if that new strain of COVID-19 is in that country, let's pray that it isn't, but if it is, there is going to be an issue of the level of contagion and how it may spread to other countries, Trinidad in particular, and other areas, and Jamaica, and how people move between our countries. And that strain, as you know, is highly contagious. Not that the effects will be different in terms of, and the vaccine would not be addressing that. The vaccine just addresses the issue of your symptomologies as you get COVID.
Yeah.
So it's not really an issue of the vaccine dealing with the level of contagiousness that will come with this new strain.
Yeah.
So I think all governments have to be extremely cautious as we move forward.
Right.
Because we don't want another spike, and the spike is where the cost and the ability to handle it from a capacity point of view is going to be the taxing issue. So we all have to be very careful. So I suspect Ministry of Education is going to be very careful and cautious going forward as how they bring back out school, understanding what is going to be developing in the region as well, and how we deal with that, and see how, because you don't want our school population, the recent information out of Barbados, the prison has a major cluster, and that is another area that we have to manage extremely carefully as we go forward. So there are a number, as Prime Minister said, this thing is so fluid and changing so rapidly from week and from day to day that caution has to be the guide word here as we move forward.
Absolutely. Caution, and you use another word, another B word there, balance. Absolutely. Happy to hear that some consideration will be given to restaurants and bars this morning. I mean, it's critical. We really, this takeout thing, it's a fine dining. You go to a restaurant, you sit, and they've been really good, except for the one situation we had. They have, taken the names, moving seats and so around, and a lot of our people work at these facilities. So we have to, that's an area where, and that's the thing with this thing, Senator Allie, as you were saying, it really cannot be a one size fit all. It has to be really all sorts of, vary it to suit the situation with safety in mind. But there are so many other things to keep in mind.
Yeah, we also keep in mind.
So let's hear what's going to happen.
Yeah, we also keep in mind that the Prime Minister alluded to the fact that at Cabinet there is likely to be an extension of the curfew.
Yeah, well, that's in order. That's in order.
For a week or two going
Yeah,
forward.
that's
But the question is how...
He said with certainty.
With certainty.
Yeah, he said with certainty, but he don't know if it's a week or 2 weeks.
I mean,
so we have to wait till later to hear if it's a week or
I know
two.
it continues, but we don't know for how long.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
But I have to sympathize with some of the young people. A lot of them expressed their frustration, but we had to coax them. Look, COVID is serious. They couldn't understand why there was a curfew after 8, and they would talk about, well, the virus is around 24/7. But the idea is that you had to communicate to them is to understand what gathering does in a social environment, in an environment with alcohol.
Listen, remember I sat...
And it's not the same.
I am a social butterfly. I'm not in the category of young people, but I'm a social butterfly, and I socialize a lot. Young people are not the only people who socialize.
That's true.
I remember I on national TV went on with that ignorance with you and Senator Allie. I said, so what, we don't get COVID after 10? Remember that?
And
then I received a call. By someone who taught me, who shall remain nameless.
Right.
And he said, listen, of course he's a social scientist. He said, listen, Brenda, at night, after 8, after 10 in the night, we are at the restaurant, we are at the club, we're on Wall Street, we're wherever. We start drinking, we're with our friends. He says a mixture of, let's say the night sky, if it's moonlight. Let's say alcohol and some good food. Let's say or endorphins start kicking in. He said the human relaxes, and so vigilance become minimal. So that is why, that's a concern really. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, when I go out in the night, I'm cool, I'm hugging, I'm laughing. In the day, we getting crazy in the supermarkets and stuff, and that's another story. But really and truly, I really got the point that at night, we tend to lose our vigilance as we become real social butterflies, influenced by other things. So I think that is a concern really.
Chris should tell us about Carrick.
But we gotta go.
Yeah? He's gone, okay.
Mr. Carrick, you gone?
No, I'm still here with you guys.
Okay, so fly down safely, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Or sail down safely, however.
See you.
Have a good one, guys.
All right.
All the best.
Thank you so very much. See you next Monday on time. So thank you so much, Mr. Campbell.
Thank
you. Have a great day.
Thank you
First
very
working
much.
day of the
You
new
too.
year. And thanks to everyone. Please be safe, everybody. Of course, just try to stay as hopeful as you can. Do what you can do to, brighten your lot and the lots of others around you. Have a great, great day. And everyone who tuned in this morning, we thank you. MTV Television, we thank you so much for being our main broadcaster, of course, on television and on your Facebook page. Our Perspectives Facebook page, Partygrenada, TNR Communications, Mikey Live, great to have you on board. And of course, Sister Isles Radio, your Facebook page out there in Carriacou. Thank you guys so very much. Have a great Monday. Have a great first week. Try and stay positive. Stay up. Until we meet again, I'm Brenda Baptiste. Bye-bye.